Welcome to the UpShift podcast, where changemakers meet and commune and find out how each other is doing their part in changing the world. Today's guest is Heather Hiscox, and she is here because she's the author of No More Status Quo, which is available now. That's her new book. Founder and CEO at the Pause for Change. She's a national speaker and the host of the talk show possibilityproject.org. So being that this show is for change makers and thought leaders and the ripple effect, girl, you are a perfect guest. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I am too. I really am too. So Heather, let's dive in. What is a pause for change?
Yeah, that's the name of my company. That's the arm of the troublemaking that I do. That's how I work with clients. So I work with nonprofits and local governments primarily, a little bit with philanthropic foundations, but that's the arm where I lead teams within organizations to learn the pause framework, to learn the pause skills and apply it to any area of uncertainty that they have that's internal or external facing. So that's like the business end of what I'm working on.
That sounds wonderful. And government and nonprofits, the hardest, I believe, I haven't worked for the government, but of course I've led a bunch of nonprofits. What a beautiful thing for you to do for people who don't usually do that kind of stuff for the money. They do it for their heart. And so keeping that heart, stable and pumping that's a big deal. So tell me this. I mean, I'm kind of curious. Pause for change, pause. So in my own work, I think the thing I try to help people with is before that reaction, before there's a trigger, and then there's something that's going to come afterwards. But what I have tried to help people do is pause before they respond. So tell me a little bit more about your workings with the pause. What do you mean by that? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, when I was really thinking about the name of the company and how I wanted to organize the framework, I realized that that was the number one piece of advice that I also was giving clients and teams was, okay, slow down, hold on a minute, just wait. Let's think about it. Let's use our critical thinking. Let's really uncover the unknowns. Let's just approach this differently. We don't have to be so reactive. We don't have to ignore our own biases, our own assumptions. Like we can sit with it and really commit to empathy and deeper understanding. So that's what it made sense to put it in as an acronym to help people remember the 5 steps, the 5 skills, but just remind all of us just to stop for a minute and breathe and decide to make the conscious action to work differently.
Yeah. I think pause you're right. It's about the most powerful thing we can do. In our communication too, before we fly off the handle, before we strike out.
Definitely.
So tell me about how you got here. I mean, there's a story, right?
Oh, yes.
But how did you want to do this for people?
All of my work was born out of my own frustration. I was really trying to solve my own problem of working within organizations and looking around and saying, are we actually creating impact? Is this making a difference? Why are the people that are most deeply impacted by our potential solutions not even in this room? Why have we not even talked to them and we keep creating for and not with people? Like that doesn't make any sense. And then just the power dynamics within the sector, especially with the funders and our organizations, it was really frustrating just to see the ways that we had to bend over backwards and the stress that was created and, just the manipulation and the influence over our work when we knew what was best to help community. So all of that just kind of got packaged into my own frustration. I started looking around and saying, what else is out there? We are obviously not using the right tools to get the impact that we envision. Let me go look around. So I really stepped away from the sector, looked at corporate, did not want to work in corporate, but was really inspired by design thinking, lean startup, agile practices, knowing that I didn't want to stay in those zones and they were missing a lot. They were not creative for social change. So taking those different elements and then adapting with love and care and thoughtfulness to what the sector really needed, and then repackaging that into the framework. And that's what I use to teach others. But It truly was me being upset, being frustrated, and knowing that there had to be a better way.
And thank you for taking that scepter and running with it. Most people get frustrated and find themselves backed into a corner, and they just can't get out of it. So was there a defining moment? Was there something that kicked you over going, I got to do something about this?
Yeah, for it's kind of a couple different defining moments. When I had my kiddos, when my kids were little, I that's when I wanted to go out on my own and be an entrepreneur. So there was that defining moment where I also wanted to leave. So there's a couple pieces in that. I was in an abusive relationship and I wanted to be done. And so I wanted to have my own business, my own money, my own bank accounts, my own everything so I could have strong two feet to stand on to get ready to leave. So that was part of the journey. And part of that frustration was just knowing that I did not want to just be limited to one organization. A lot of people leave organizations to become consultants. It happens quite frequently.
Yeah.
But I was kind of getting bored and tired of the same thing. I love, for the last 12 plus years, I've been on my own. I love helping multiple organizations. So I really had to get in touch with what gets my brain excited? What gets my passion energized? Like, how do I want to work? How do I operate better in flexibility? How do I operate better in these different ways? And so I was able to package, the foundations for my dream and really go for it. So that frustration was a big motivator, but my desire for independence was even bigger, I think.
Right. And then having children, because I've been a single mom, that is such a motivation to have time. You need time to be with them.
Yes,
And when
exactly.
the corporate world is barreling down your neck, I just did a post on LinkedIn about boundaries at work and why that's important, right?
Yeah.
And how to say no.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give? I'm going to talk about on the entrepreneur side. Advice would you give to somebody in your shoes? Let's say at that precipice of I got to do something different. I know what my passion is, or I see something that could be done that no one's doing, so it must be mine. You know that old saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What do you say to
Yeah.
somebody who's on that moment to leap? Give us advice, maybe things you wish you'd known, and then the motivation to push them into that next step.
Yeah, when I meet other people, they're like, I'm ready to make the leap. I say, try to do it in stages. Don't just, take this job and shove it, walk out the door, burn all the bridges, just march out, think that you're going to have this triumphant, immediate success. No, 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 do not do that. I tell people, really, while you're still getting the full paycheck, that full-time job, let's say, that's when you should be using your extra time, evenings and weekends to do the discovery, to really test out the business concept and idea, to do the empathy interviews, the customer interviews, to really understand, is there? Do you have something? And then, once you start to validate and you start to reshape and let your potential customers help you reshape your idea, you're not so stubborn and, just tunnel vision that you're not listening to others. As that emerges and as you get that increased confidence, then you can start to play with that equation, that ratio of your work versus that paycheck. And I recommend people, maybe do 3/4 time and then maybe you go to half time. And then maybe you do, another sort of mixture. That I always tell people because, and I've done it too. I've launched 5 different ventures in the last, 12 plus years. And there are ventures where I can see I put my blinders on purpose. I didn't want to hear what other people, I was driven by passion. I wanted to build this. Let's go. And it bit me in the butt every time. So I learned a lot of valuable early lessons of listen and slow down and, do this with validation and intention. And then you will be more successful.
Yeah, that's some good advice. Is how to weigh taking the advice of other people, watching what's going on, but also really following your passion because the passion is the fire that's going to get you through those rough days, right? So speaking of rough days, Heather, what do you do? Because as entrepreneurs, first of all, we're faced for pioneers, change makers of the doing something different out there. There's nobody that's done it before, so to speak. When you have those days, because we all bump up against walls, what do you do? What is your advice? What do you do? And what's your advice to those that would be bumping up walls?
Oh gosh, it's just to know that this too shall pass, that it's usually temporary. What feels like, oh no, this is the worst thing ever. It usually never ends up being that way. I mean, I remember in my early entrepreneur journey, anyone that was doing something adjacent to what I was talking about in the sector, I felt so competitive. It was just like, oh, how dare they? Oh gosh. And I look back and now it's hilarious. It's so ridiculous that I had that reaction. That was about me, right? That was about my lack of confidence. That was about my insecurities. And I realized that. And none of those people or other frameworks or other consultancies ever made an impact on my own business. We were not competing for the same clients. It was not what I had fabricated in my mind as a distraction. And often those were distractions. So I have learned now that there are going to be awesome days and awful days. And I just need to, drink water, deep breaths, take a nap, put on my big girl pants. It's going to be fine. It will work out. And I now feel confident, navigating these other challenges that I will be able to rise to the occasion and do what needs to be done.
It sounds like that in the roughest moments and the toughest moments, you take your own advice, which is great. Pause, take a drink of water, take a walk around the block. And how hard, that's so hard to do because for my personality, it's like, no, work harder, take on more. And all I'm doing is what? Feeding the fire of stress, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's amazing. So you've been at this for a while. What is the legacy that you hope to leave in your wake?
It's funny. I've been thinking about legacy and ancestry. And one of the think the flaws or delusions that we tell ourselves as change makers is that we are the one. That what we do is so phenomenally different or powerful, or the impact we create is so great that like we're the one. Which is ridiculous because we're part of communities that make this change. I mean, within my local community, the role that I play is a tiny little piece of, trying to shift people to new action and behavior and thinking. I'm part of a collective of so many other change makers that I've gotten to know in my network who are extraordinary, that are doing just fantastic work. And then I step back again and I say, okay, there's a lineage of ancestry of fighters, of people that, hundreds of years ago said no more status quo. And there's going to be amazing people that I won't get the pleasure of meeting in 100 and 200 years that are also going to challenge status quo, whatever it is for them. And so I have the humility to show up in these spaces and to show up in my work and know that I am like that little grain of sand in the larger fabric of what we're trying to do here. But I know that I'm not going to go along with what I don't agree with. I know that I am going to challenge. I know that I am going to stand up for what's right and stand up for the people that I care about. And so that gives me a feeling of like pride and satisfaction and hope. But I'm just one teeny tiny little part of this greater change that is even beyond our knowing and imagination.
Very humble of you, I believe. It seems to me you're making a bigger ripple than you're saying, but I do understand this whole concept about community, collaboration. One person fighting for something is one thing, but 400, 300, 200, two or more, let two or more be gathered, seems so much more powerful. And it sounds to me that that your legacy really is about being a perpetuating part of a whole. And that's such an amazing way to look at it. And it ties in to what you were talking about. I'll put it in my words, and that is I left competition on the trail. I did the Camino, and you leave things on the trail. I left competition. And so really related with you. It's like once you leave competition behind, it's like you're not competition. You're not competition. We actually are working toward the same goal. And so therefore we're just edifying and lifting each other up, which on the greater good of this world, as we, I believe, all strive for more cohesiveness and not so much divisiveness, because it does make us weaker. Divided we are conquered. I think that is the big legacy I'm hearing that you're really perpetuating. Does that sound, am I making sense to you in your world?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're only going to create change together. And we also have to honor the people that forever have put their necks out first. The people that have fought first, that have left comfort first, that have spoken against first, and really honor those that have come before us for all the struggle, and then understanding our role in it, with Black women leading the charge with, a lot of change over time. LGBTQ communities leading the change over time. It's also knowing your place, your positionality, where you fit in that flow, and the place that you can serve, and where you can show up, and where you can strive, and where you can sit back. And just having the emotional intelligence, the empathy, the experience, the humility to know when is your moment to really try to lead efforts, and when it's your moment to hang back, and really being that support structure for the larger work. I mean, it's a lot of self-awareness goes into this as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking my, or I should say, barking up the right tree here.
Good, good.
Yeah, speaking my language. So tell us something about yourself that most people don't know.
I've talked about it more over the past couple years, and I think that's going to be the topic of my next book, is all about caregiving. My father passed yet on yesterday was his 15-year anniversary since his passing. But before I took care of him before he passed, I took care of my grandmother, his mother, before she passed. And 2 years ago, my partner was diagnosed with bone cancer. And so I've been his full-time caregiver, and he's now currently disabled. And so that's a journey we're still on. And then my mother has dementia, and I help take care of her. And then I have two teenagers. And so, people were like, "You are a warrior. My goodness. How do you, have the talk show, work with clients, write the book, do all the things, and you still do this, and take care of my friends and other family?" And so yeah, the caregiving has been really hard. It's made the balance even more delicate, but it has been so transformative and just elevated my work, elevated the ways that I'm challenging life, thinking about life. The book is called No More Status Quo, but my publisher was joking, like, your entire life is no more status quo. And so that's really what most people don't realize, the depth and the width of that impact of what it is to be a caregiver, and to show up in all these spaces, and to show up with the energy that I bring and the love and care that I bring, when my love and care is being spread so many places. So yeah, it makes life interesting, that's for sure.
Well, I can relate because I told you before we started about my mother. Caregiving is a special person. Hospice nurses, I really feel, are special people.
Absolutely. Oh
Right.
yes, definitely, definitely. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about No More Status Quo.
So the book was really, I say that it was living under my skin for probably a decade, just like ready to pop out. And I had never written a book before. I had known some authors, but not real intimately. So I again ate my own dog food, followed my own framework, and really wanted to reach out and to interview authors to say, how was it? What do you wish you would have done differently? Did you self-publish? Did you have a book deal? Did you do hybrid? I just wanted to learn, and I'm very, very curious. I love learning. So I just started learning more about the process, the business of it, and the writing of it and all of that. And I met an amazing publishing team at Page Two, of woman-owned company out of Vancouver. And they were so supportive. I had only written maybe like the first 30 pages, and they read the first 30 and were like, "We're doing it. Let's go." And I wrote the book in 3 weeks.
Oh my, wow.
That's how under the skin,
Under the
ready to
skin.
go it was. And so the editing, of course, was a whole other sort of painful process.
Yeah.
after that. But the reason why I wanted to write the book and why it was about to, pop out of my skin was that not everyone can hang out with me in the normal structures that I offer in, the small group events or the one-on-one intensive activities I do with organizations. So I wanted the framework to be available to anyone. And I have so many stories. I keep a story database, all the aha moments or amazing things that happen or learning that bubbles up. I've always tracked it over the years. And I almost felt like it's not fair. It's selfish of me to hold on to these inspiring tales of the realities of the good and bad that it is working differently. So that was also a vehicle for me to infuse the storytelling and
Yeah.
to really show other change makers it's possible. You're not alone. What you're seeing is absolutely real. It's absolutely frustrating, but there's another way that you can show up to the work. And here's all these different examples and case studies to motivate you. So that was really the impetus, and it felt so good to get out of my body and onto the page. Yeah.
So this sounds like a book that people that listen to this podcast need to go get.
Yes,
If you're,
yeah,
if you're thinking
absolutely.
about being, well, I mean, either you are or you aren't, maybe a change maker, maybe it comes at something that happens in your life. But this sounds like if you felt very passionate about something, like I got to go do this, I got to go save golden retrievers from getting overtrained, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Would they go to this book? Is this book a helpful guide for people like that?
Definitely. I would, it's for any area of uncertainty that you want to navigate more efficiently and effectively and with more love and care and more success. So like the first third of the book, I would say is me talking about, how I think we got here and where we really are as a sector,
Right.
calling in and out, the practices that are not serving us, the ways that we blindly adopt best practices, the ways that we build in isolation and disconnection, the ways that we just jump to solutions and put them into execution mode, without testing a single assumption. I call those things out so people can, with love and care again, recognize like, oh, I am replicating some of these harmful practices and standing in my own way. And then the rest of the book is really about, all right, step by step, how do you make change so that someone can follow it almost like a workbook. And then at the end of each chapter, what's also very important to me is for people to recognize how they are changed by their learning, how they are being transformed. So not
Yeah.
only are they creating impact, with their organizations and communities, but how is this learning challenging your identity? How is it challenging your assumptions? How are you evolving? Because that's part of it, right? Change is changing us. And we
Hmm.
often don't pause enough to think about that deep integration and reflection work that we need to do as people and as change makers. So that's another element and layer that I added to the book as well.
So is it available on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on any online retailer. It's on audiobook as well, and then on ebook as well.
Fantastic. No more status quo. Heather Hiscox, Hiscox, just
Yep.
in case you want to spell it.
Yeah.
This has been phenomenal, really, because you're about the perfect guest for this particular podcast. And I'm so glad you found the time to be with us today. And the last question I have for you is what little nugget, what motivational nugget, a little something, some little seed to plant in our brains out there that would be motivating, but from Heather?
I think you have to find your thing. You have to find the thing that when everything else ebbs and flows, when you have those awful days and you have those great days, I've been finding more and more, what's the thing that when I don't know what to put on my slide deck, or I'm not
Mhm.
quite sure how to shape this follow-up email to a potential client, or I'm not quite sure how to handle this conflict that maybe some of my teams are encountering with leadership. I have found that if I root myself in love and I view it from that angle, then I can say, okay, if I'm rooted in love and care, and that's what motivates my work, how might I respond with that lens? So if I'm frustrated, okay, let me hang back a minute. How can I look at this from a loving perspective? Okay, maybe I need to tap into my empathy and try to understand why they're not going along with the program, why they're causing some delays or conflict or whatever it is. And that has been so helpful when I'm really at the blank page, or, I can't figure out how I want to package my next speaking engagement. I really return to that. How do I want to share love as the foundation for the work with the people that I'm here to inform and support? And that's made all the difference. It has made everything kind of return to the flow and just be a lot smoother and easier and more heart connected and more authentic.
Wow, Heather, thank you. And I hope some of that empathy flows back to you, right?
Thank
In
you.
the
Oh,
middle
it
of all this.
does. Absolutely. I reap all of the karmic benefits of trying to do my best. We're all just trying to figure this out, right? All along the way.
Positive out, positive in, positive reception.
Definitely. Yeah.
Heather, thank you so much for being with us today. And I really enjoyed getting to know you better, getting to know your cause, getting to know your passion. And that's really what this is all about. The UpShift is about helping those around us upshift, get into the higher gear of their life. And, right there, I think they could go start with no more status quo.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's great.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for doing this. It's so great to have a place to get that boost of inspiration, to get that infusion of what we need to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Don't go away, though.
Okay, I'll say thank you.
Thank you, Heather Hiscox, for joining us today on the UpShift, where changemakers like you gather and get motivated. She's definitely a changemaker and has been a great guest for us. The name of her company is called Changing the Way We Change the World, founder and CEO of Pause for Change. Remember, her book, No More Status Quo, is on sale at Amazon.com and other venues. Thank you for joining us today. I am your host, Angel Howard, on the UpShift. I'd love to get to know you better, so email me at angel@angelhoward.co. Also, invite me to speak or come on your podcast. Join my website at angelhoward.co. And for a deeper dive into your own journey, go look for my book on Amazon.com that's called Issues in Your Tissues. Until next time, have a wonderful day.